You're listening to the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the weekly Firecast, episode 19, interview with Len Kozarski of Blackwoods Wing Sauce.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. You love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory. This is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
Welcome and Happy New Year. It's 2013. And whether you're a barbecuer, a chili pepper lover, a hot sauce freak, or a buffalo wing fanatic, I bid you welcome and thanks for downloading the latest installment of the weekly Firecast. My name is Scott Roberts. I'm a blogger, a writer, and a podcaster. My base of operations can be found at scottrobertsweb.com. And things with flavor, fire, and spice, that's what I'm all about. And that's what the show is all about as well. It's a brand new year. I'm all excited about it, and I hope you are as well. Of course, we here in North America, United States specifically, it is playoff season. I'm a huge NFL football fan, and in addition to tailgating, of course, that means big get-togethers, football watching parties, and what other food typifies that as well as hot wings. We're talking buffalo wings. Well, my guest later in the show is Len Kozarski of Blackwoods Wing Sauce, a fairly new sauce company based out of New Jersey. I met him at Peppers at the Beach last year in May of 2012, tried his 4 products. They just blew me away. And there are some of the butter buffalo wing sauces I've had in a long, long time. So he was kind enough to let me interview him, and I will right after the review of the week. But before we get to that, there's a little bit of housekeeping. First, as you may or may not know, I'm the co-host of the Dexter podcast. Now, Dexter is the show on Showtime about the serial killer of serial killers. My good friend and partner at Two Guys Talking, Mike Wilkerson, co-hosts that show. Now, the 7th season of the show is wrapped up right before Christmas. As of recording this, right at the beginning of the new year, we have 2 other episodes to record. One is an all-fan input episode based on everyone's feedback throughout the year, and our 7th-season wrap-up. So if you're a fan of the Showtime show Dexter, run over to the numeral 2guystalking.com. That is 2guystalking.com. Subscribe to our show via iTunes, and take a listen. And while you're over at the Two Guys Talking site, there are a plethora, thousands of hours of great entertainment via podcast. Take a look around at the current podcasts on the network. There are dozens of shows and reviews and things that appeared on the network in years past. And in addition to the weekly Firecast, which you're listening to right now, I'm sure there's something that is of interest to you. I know there's a lot of poker fans listening to this podcast right now. And one of the better poker podcasts I've ever heard is the Two Guys Talking Poker Podcast with hosts Vic Porcelli and Andy Kazin. You can listen, download, or subscribe over at twoguystalking.com. But just take a look around. Now, I'm sure there'll be something of interest to you. Another thing I wanted to mention that in addition to my website at scottrobertsweb.com is to tap into my presence over at Facebook and Twitter. Now, my Facebook page can be found at facebook.com/scottrobertsweb. I not only post updates about my blog, about the weekly Firecast podcast, but just sometimes little interesting links, and I'll post some pictures up there. Just little quick things that I want to share with everybody. So don't miss out on that. Be sure to like my Facebook page. And if you're on Twitter, be sure to follow me at twitter.com/scottroberts. And just in case you're not in front of a computer right now or at a place where you can write down these links, you can always find all the links mentioned in every episode in the show notes. So you can either go to weeklyfirecast.com or twoguystalking.com. Go to the particular episode. In this case, it's episode 19. Look at the entry underneath there, and all the links will be there very conveniently for you. And I'd also like to encourage everyone, if you love this podcast, be sure to rate it and review it in iTunes. Just simply go to my iTunes link, found either at my blog or on the Two Guys Talking site. Click on the blue button. As of right now, there's a blue button that says View in iTunes on the left-hand side of the page. All you need to do is go to the Weekly Firecast page on the iTunes website. which of course is linked everywhere. Right now there's a blue button on the left-hand side that says View in iTunes. Simply click on that. That will open the iTunes app or program up on your computer. It'll go right to the Weekly Firecast page. You could subscribe there, but you could also rate and review the show. And to be very blunt with you, I'm looking for all the reviews I can get because that will make the Weekly Firecast rank higher in the iTunes listings. So, of course, I want to reach as many chili heads and barbecuers as I can. So if you believe in this great little show, you can help us out tremendously by giving us a rating and just writing a few sentences in a review. And for that, I thank you very much. And lastly, just like I started off with the podcast probably about a month or so ago, that any time I shared a link for a new Weekly Firecast episode on Facebook or on Twitter, if you share the link on Facebook, if you retweet it on Twitter, I will mention your name or your company's name in the very next episode as a way of thanking you. So if you wanted a quick mention of your company, what better free way of doing that than by reaching potentially thousands of people simply by sharing the link? So if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, just watch for my posts and my tweets and just share the love. And, well, even though I said lastly on the last remark, I think this will be the last little comment I'm going to bring up, is that the Weekly Firecast is looking for sponsors. So if you're interested in sponsoring the show, it will be live reads about your business or your company. You can contact me a couple ways. One is through my contact page at scottrobertsweb.com, or you can go to the contact form at my page at twoguystalking.com/Firecast. Just fill out your information, just say, hey, Scott, here's my company. I'm interested in learning more about sponsorship. So enough of me, Gavin. Let's go ahead and get to the show segments.
And now, the review of the week.
My review topic this week is SuckleBusters, Sweet Spicy Mustard Gold BBQ Sauce. Now, SuckleBusters is a pretty good brand overall, so of course I have always high expectations for stuff that owner Dan Arnold has for me. But just taking a look at this review bottle that he sent to me, I wasn't quite sure what to make of this. I mean, just consistency-wise, it looks like a fairly thick sauce, a really dark caramel color. It's not a brown barbecue color, since it is a mustardy barbecue sauce. It is a little bit lighter, but I do love the thick consistency of this. But I guess more important is the taste. Now, make no mistake about it, this is a barbecue sauce through and through. Now, this isn't your typical really strong horseradish mustard, the kind of nasally spiciness that you would usually get from a mustard. It's not that type of BBQ sauce at all. But as the name implies, Sweet Spicy Mustard Gold, there's quite a bit of sweetness to it, quite a bit of spiciness to it for a barbecue sauce. Now, this isn't, something for extreme chili heads. You're going to be disappointed. But there is quite a bit of heat in this. Now, I would say if you're going to add all these components together, sweetness, spiciness, mustardiness, a barbecue flavor, a little bit of smokiness, all in a one package, it's really hard to do better than this. And this is another solid winner from Dan at SuckleBusters. And that's actually saying a lot because when it comes to mustard-based barbecue sauces, I'm not always a huge fan of it. If I were to say that I had one particular flavor profile that I enjoy mostly in a barbecue sauce, it would be a little sweet, a little smoky, a little rich, a little peppery. Maybe something like a cross between a Kansas City style, maybe a little bit of Texas, a little bit of Memphis, and they're kind of dry rub spice flavored. But for something that's mustardy, this is very, very good. Now, in my opinion, this does so much better than just a barbecue sauce. I think its true strength is its versatility. This makes an excellent dipping sauce for chicken tenders. This stuff is also expectedly wonderful on hot dogs and sausage. I've tried this on deli sandwiches as a replacement for mustard, and it does a spectacular job. So my recommendation to you is, even if you're not crazy about mustard-based barbecue sauces, is to give this a shot. It's a great dip, a great sandwich topper, as well as being something good for, grilled chicken, grilled wings, and even pork. So it does have some spice to it for spice fans. Again, if you're looking for something that's just going to blow you away in terms of heat, this is not going to do it. But with a nice balance of sweetness, of good mustardy tones, and an all-around, crowd pleaser of a barbecue sauce, this does a great job. So SuckleBusters Sweet Spicy Mustard Gold BBQ Sauce, I give a very high rating to. And I would give a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Excellent stuff. And I have to give a disclaimer, yes, SuckleBusters is a paid advertiser on scottrobertsweb.com. I always keep my personal opinions about particular products separated from my reviews. And as a matter of fact, I don't allow advertisers to advertise with me unless I really believe in the company and I really believe in their products. And I'm not paid to give a high review to this. And I think the taste alone is enough to make me give this a huge thumbs up. So if you're interested in this yourself, simply go to SuckleBusters.com and order you a bottle. It comes in a 12 fluid ounce bottle, and I believe it runs for $6.99 for a bottle. And even with the few extra bucks for shipping, this would be something I would really recommend.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
As I mentioned at the start of the episode, Len Kozarski is the owner and chief cook of Blackwoods Wing Sauce, a fairly new company based out of New Jersey. And like I said, I first met him at the Peppers at the Beach event in Rehoboth Beach in May of 2012. I tried his 4 sauces on chips there at the show. They were very delicious tasting, but of course, without an actual chicken wing. I had to reserve my final judgment on whether or not I really love the sauces or not. And then it wasn't too long ago that I was finally able to get some sauces from him, and let me tell you, these are some fantastic products. His signature sauce is probably a medium heat wing sauce, but it's very rich and creamy and puts a lot of the other mass marketed, find in every other supermarket wing sauce to shame. It is an excellent product. It also has a slightly milder wing sauce, garlic parmesan flavor, that I think is on the money when it comes to a milder, smoother, but yet more savory kind of wing sauce. And the hot version of a sauce is called Dante's Inferno. Kicks up the heat quite a bit. There is more of a hot sauce taste to it, but it still is able to retain the rich, creamy flavor and consistency of his signature sauce. And his 4th product is a Chipotle barbecue sauce, which is not a straightforward, just pure barbecue sauce. But in my opinion, it's more of a smoky, barbecue-flavored wing sauce. Now, I give all products a big thumbs up. And just recently, I was able to talk to Len via Skype, where he told me a little bit more about himself. So without further ado, here is the interview. How you doing, Len?
Hey, good, Scott. How are you today?
Oh, couldn't be better. Just getting through the holidays, okay?
Yeah, I did. The holidays were great. Santa Claus came and left lots of goodies.
So how did you get your start with Blackwoods Wing Sauce?
Well, Scott, it all started back, it's been about 18 years now, just going around to some of the famous wing joints in my local area outside of Philadelphia and being highly disappointed in the outcome of my wing eating experience. Needless to say, I was not impressed with places people were raving over, just going, wow, it's Frank's, liquid margarine from the restaurant depot, and just salt, vinegar, and no flavor. And figured, okay, this can be done better. I always kind of was a chef my whole life. Always loved cooking and experimenting with, ingredients and recipes. Wanted to make a living at it, but pursued a different path when I was younger. I actually fell into auto body restoration of antique cars and muscle cars. Mm-hmm. But always had a passion for food. Always been a foodie. And again, just thought there's got to be something better than just some Frank's or some Crystal or some typical Louisiana style cayenne pepper sauce from the supermarket, tweaked with some artificial preservatives and flavorings that amount to pretty much nothing. Mm-hmm. And played with it, different levels of the basic premise was to create product that was better than anything I could possibly get my hands on. So I started supplying it for a friend's restaurant who opened up a sports bar. And I was supplying it for him, and people were going crazy over it. And I did it for years. And it became a hit. So everyone's like, man, you should bottle this stuff. You would do really well. But these are the best wings around. And the rest is, I guess, kind of history.
So right now you have 4 different sauces. Now, was your signature sauce the medium heat level, your very first sauce?
Yeah, that was the original flavor. That's the original recipe that I've been working on, and it's been tweaked and played with over the years and fine-tuned here and there. It just gets better and better as the years go on. But I think after making it, thousands and thousands of times and playing with it and revamping the recipe, I think I got it tuned into where I don't really think it can get any better than it is.
It's definitely one of the upper echelon of wing sauces I've ever had personally.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, like a few other, I guess, specialty manufacturers of wing sauces out there. I'm not going to name names. but it has quite a bit of difference than like some of the ones that you mentioned, just the, like the Franks and the artificial butter flavor. It has such a richness and creaminess, but yours in particular, it has a savoriness on top of it. It's very complex. It's very rich, very creamy. And to me, this is part of a new breed of wing sauces that are just so much better than, I guess, something that people can make at home with Franks and butter, or one of the pre-made wing sauces you can just go into a grocery store and buy. Do you see yourself almost being part of a different type of category of wing sauce?
Yeah, Scott, I would say these wing sauces are gourmet. And I know that word's thrown around a lot these days, but the premise of the company was to actually create fresh churned butter. Even though I grew up in Cherry Hill, my uncle owned one of the largest corn and tomato farms in southern New Jersey. It was several hundred acres. And I remember working as a teenager on the farm, going in for lunch every day. We pack corn and go out on the harvesters and things. And my aunt used to make fresh butter. They weren't a dairy farm, but they did have, a couple cows and a few chickens and, a little bit of livestock. Mm-hmm. Mostly a vegetable farm, but she would make butter. And when you take fresh cream and you shake it up and you add in your buttermilk and, you let it ferment a little bit for a certain amount of hours, and you put that on fresh bread out of the oven, there's nothing in the world that's as comfort food as that. So I'm thinking you couldn't go to the finest European brand butter, and it wouldn't even compare to making it farm fresh, table fresh, farm to table, fresh churned butter whipped into wing sauce. And, we all know that the original recipe of a buffalo-style wing was butter and cayenne hot pepper sauce. Mm-hmm. So I figured just that alone would take wings to a different level by putting in farm fresh churned butter. That one simple ingredient would really be a game changer for the wing sauce.
Definitely agree. It's almost like the difference between that and just like a butter flavored oil. I mean, you try to put some of that on a piece of bread, and tell me how just rich and creamy and flavorful that could be. Well, not at all. So yeah, I think that's at least what I taste. That's a definite component that sticks out.
Yeah, I knew I was on to something when I was just messing around with store-bought butters and noticing huge differences in creaminess and flavor. It's one of those things. It's like pizza. It's such a simple, basic recipe. Like a pizza pie. You have dough, tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, but there's so many variations off of it. Same goes with butter. You have several huge manufacturers that sell all across the country, and they all have distinct flavors to them. Some have a more, believe it or not, nutty flavor to them, because they are fermented longer. Even the way some of them cook down is night and day. Some are real oily, some come up more frothy and creamy, almost like a cappuccino. So when I start experimenting with that stuff, I'm like, you know what? Let me try making my own. It's a simple procedure, and I think the turnout and the end result was a home run for the premise of starting a gourmet wing sauce. So then, obviously adding in other ingredients such as honey, fresh grown tarragon and thyme that I grow myself organically in my garden. Some other types of peppers too, to give it more of a complexity and give more flavor layerings. So the recipe isn't just cayenne, because the cayenne pepper is a very distinct pepper in the chili family. Mm-hmm. It's one of the few peppers that actually has a tart, smoky, bitter kind of taste to it. I add in some other peppers like guajillo, some ricotta manzano, African bird's eye, and I've been playing around with over the years, just growing different peppers and seeing, obviously jalapenos and habaneros, but tweaking it with some of these other tarty, smoky peppers that are similar to the cayenne. Mm-hmm. Actually work really well. And the guajillo one is probably one of my favorites, just to eat straight, just to pick from the garden and just put in just about any dish. It's not real hot, but it's got a lot of flavor,
Oh yeah, definitely.
And obviously they've known that down in Mexico for, hundreds of years, so again, I tried to take it to a different level, just like I said, I knew there had to be something better.
And then, of course, you have your original wing sauce. How did you develop the other 3 sauces that you currently have in your lineup?
Well, I noticed that not the general public isn't like us chili heads who like to, play around with Trinidad's and ghost peppers and, chop up a little bit, throw it into some dishes. Believe it or not, I noticed some people actually thought the sauces were a little too hot. Mm-hmm. Now, in the world in the chili head world, we all know that my signature Indian sauce is by far not hot. It's got obviously a little spice, and if you eat, as you eat it, the capsaicin level will build. You feel a little bit of a numbing, but it's not melt your face off blazing heat. I'm about the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was doing shows and promoting it and going around the different restaurants and festivals, I noticed the majority of the general public was like, oh, that's a little spicy. They obviously didn't have cold beer to wash it down with in a dark bar or out in a field or whatever, some type of festival atmosphere. I figured, maybe we could still have that same buffalo flavor profile, lose a little bit of the heat. And then I also had about 5% of the population who were chili heads going, oh, that's not hot at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay. So that's when it dawned on me I had to make something for the general public, for people who didn't really like spicy buffalo sauce, cayenne-based sauces, hence the garlic parmesan. And then I knew there was a calling for 5 to 10% of the population who just want a lot of heat. And I tell people when they come up, they're like, hey, hot sauce. And they go, no, they start off as a hot sauce, but they're tweaked. These are wing sauces. They're condiments. They're designed to go on wings, but they can pretty much go into anything. Put them in your burrito. They're great taco night. Obviously, we all know you can put it in scrambled eggs and omelets. Learned a new thing over the summer, Scott. I was at a festival, a cranberry festival. South Jersey, believe it or not, is the cranberry capital of the world. We supply all the cranberries for Ocean Spray. And not all, I would say 80%.
Mm-hmm.
Big festival, 50,000 people flood this little town out in the Jersey Pine Barrens for a weekend. Just having people out there, the other vendors, food vendors. I met a guy who did barbecue, charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing like a Boston butt, like a pork shoulder, but on skewers.
Yeah.
And they were cooked fastly. It wasn't slow cooked. They were fast cooked. And, with lots of bark, lots of, very, very crunchy, very well done. And we were dumping the Inferno sauce onto the pork.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought in a million years that buffalo wing sauce on pork like that would have been, it was like candy. I couldn't believe the caramelization of the wing sauces on those pork skewers were to die for. I ate about 50 of them that weekend. I was just every hour going down to the guy, hey, can I have a couple more? I was like addicted to it.
No, I find buffalo sauce in general is like fantastic on a hamburger.
Oh, yeah.
Buffalo burger, yeah. People didn't think that I'm weird whenever I mention that. It's like, here, try a bite. It's like, this is fantastic. So, yeah, buffalo sauce is not just for wings.
No, it's actually really one of my favorite ways to use buffalo sauce is on pizza. I really like it on pizza as a condiment. It makes it spicy. It has a little bit of a sting. And it gives it some flavor. I think it just goes really, really well together. It's like peanut butter and jelly to me.
So you kind of mentioned, creating other products for different heat levels of people. What was the whole process behind creating, I guess, your mildest sauce, the garlic parmesan?
Well, the process was just to tone it down slightly. I mean, you figure, I never actually had an actual count, but just from my experience of being a chili head, I would say the signature sauce is hovering around 50,000 Scoville units, which in the world of chili peppers is pretty mild, right?
Mm-hmm. So,
and I noticed it's a generational thing too. The funny thing is, I cannot wait, Scott, till these 8 and 12-year-old kids now who've come to all the shows and tried my products and love them and grow up and get jobs and can afford to buy bottles from them, because it's about 90% of the younger generation. They absolutely just love spicy stuff. And people our age, it's kind of, 30, 40, maybe 50%, depending on the crowd, if it's a beer festival or whatever, whatever show. And then as you get into the upper 40s and 50s, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's only about 20% of the population. So basically, the garlic parmesan sauce is the signature sauce with a little more honey, so it's a little sweeter, a little more fresh turned butter in it, so it's a little creamier. The cream counteracts the capsaicin, so it drops the Scoville units down to 10,000 or so. To make it more, obviously you don't want to use the word commercial because that's the furthest thing I think the sauces are from, but more for the masses, for people who aren't really into spice,
mm-hmm.
to where they could still get the buffalo profile flavor and not be distracted from the spiciness or the heat level. And then the Dante's Inferno, again, not melt your face off hot, and as you eat a plate of wings or put it on tacos or whatever you decide to put it on, the capsaicin level does build up because there's definitely some ghost pepper and a little bit of Trinidad puree mixed in with it. I use about 3 tablespoons per 8 gallons at a time. Mm-hmm. And that's enough to kick it up, I would say, probably 70, 80,000 Scoville units. So you're probably hovering around, probably around 100, 125, something like that. 80,000, between 80 and 120. I'm not exactly sure. That's my guess. The Inferno sauce is the signature sauce. I'm kind of like a mad scientist with the products. If you ever came out and did a sampling at my table, I sit there and explain it to everybody. All the products, the 4 flavors I have as of now, they all kind of play off of each other. And it goes like this. The original signature sauce has actually a little bit of my Chipotle barbecue sauce in it. The garlic parmesan, like we just said, a little more honey, a little more buttery, and a touch of barbecue sauce mixed in with it. But that's a whole nother story. The barbecue sauce, I can tell you that story later on. There's 29 ingredients in that barbecue sauce. It takes forever to make a batch. Mm-hmm. The signature sauce, a little more barbecue, a little less butter, a little less honey. That's kind of like in the middle. And then when you get to the Dante's, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. It has a little more Chipotle barbecue sauce mixed in with it. So what happens is it has a little more of a sharpness to it, a little more of a vinegar bite because of the apple cider and the distilled vinegar I use in the barbecue sauce. Because that was another thing. When I was eating the wings and you were asking me, what got me into this, first thing I would taste in any bar is just distilled vinegar. It's like, I'm not a big fan of vinegar. Mm-hmm. I think it's okay in small dosages, or if you want to clean your windows, and spring clean. Mm-hmm. But to eat in food, so I actually use like a white wine vinegar. It doesn't quite have that bite. It's a little smoother, a little more complex, and I think it really helps also with the flavor profile of my wing sauce by using an aged white wine vinegar.
We're going to take a little break right now, but we'll return to the second half of this interview right after these messages.
Poker's been around a long time. The memories, the cards, the money, the players, it all makes for an outstanding experience. But where can you get true knowledge, tips, tricks, and detail? Don't miss the next episode of Two Guys Talking Poker, where poker zealots Vic Porcelli and Andy Kazin interview poker greats like Michael the Grinder Mizrachi, Alan Chainsaw Kessler, Greg Fosselman Raymer, and many more. Add on superb hand analysis and poker industry news, and you've got the Two Guys Talking Poker podcast. Check it out now at twoguystalkingpoker.com. That's twoguystalkingpoker.com.
Do you consider yourself to be a chilihead and want to find some hot new gear to wear?
Oh, yeah!
Look no further than chiliheadtees.com. If you're a heat freak and love hot sauce, chili peppers, or anything dealing with fiery and spicy foods, this is the place to get t-shirts to show off your obsession. Chilihead Tees is dedicated to giving you the hottest t-shirts, mouse pads, mug, aprons, and more for the discriminating chilihead. Go to chiliheadtees.com. That's chiliheadstees.com.
You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can make all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
I'm Bob Chrisman from the Galaxy Cast, reviewing each and every episode of The Clone Wars, sci-fi entertainment, and more on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And we are back, and here's the second half of the interview. Okay, well, let's talk about the process of creating your barbecue sauce. It's kind of interesting that you mentioned that you use some of that in your signature sauce. Now, had you originally created the barbecue sauce to begin with, or is it something, I guess, over the years that you thought just to use a little bit of the barbecue sauce in there?
Well, what originally happened was the original recipe did call for a little bit of barbecue sauce. It was one of the secret ingredients. And as I became more into smoking protein meats and becoming a little more of a barbecue connoisseur, owning my own smoker and stuff like that. I'm like, well, why should I put someone else's product into my product?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's contradiction. That's goes against, what I'm all about. So then I set out on a quest to make my own barbecue sauce. To take it a step further, I actually even make my own Worcestershire sauce. Yeah, I actually put in my own anchovies, my own tamarind, and make it myself. So I don't even use another company's, Worcestershire sauce. I make it myself. And that goes into the barbecue sauce. So that's the mad scientist of my brain, to just make everything from when I say complete scratch, I really mean complete scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no halfway mixing something that's already kind of put together. And that's one thing you rarely hear people making their own Worcestershire sauce. It's usually something they kind of bring in store-bought, and that's just one component of a barbecue sauce or something else that they happen to throw together.
Right. And I was, just doing the research and studying all the ingredients. Like, wow, there's anchovies and Worcestershire sauce?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I could, basically soy sauce and anchovy and, like I said, a little tamarind. I mean, the recipe varies. I'm like, I can make my own, do this myself. So I wanted to stay true to scratch made, everything being scratch made, adding in my own fresh chili peppers, getting fresh mash, fermenting in an old whiskey barrel, the old beer barrel. I don't know if you know that story or not. I don't know if you've ever been to my website and read about it, but
go ahead and give everyone listening to this the story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Started off as a hobbyist brewer, making my own beers. Again, not happy with, drinking Budweiser or whatever. And this is obviously, we're going back years before the craft brews became popular.
Mm-hmm.
When the selection was a little more limited. Had a little hobbyist barrel down in my basement, and we were making, like oatmeal cream stouts and, all kinds of really cool, like porters and, like things that were complex, like really good beers.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of ingredients. So when I got when I first grew my first batch of peppers, it was actually just out of a container garden. I started off trying to be a hot sauce manufacturer, stumbled into making wing sauces. I don't know if I ever told you that story. Yeah, I just was a hobbyist hot sauce maker back in the mid to late 90s. I'd say around 96, 97 is when I made my first batch of hot sauce. Noticed that the older whiskey barrel that my dad used to collect antiques, so we had this weird collection of whiskey barrels around our house. God rest his soul. Noticed that fermenting in the barrel actually gave it the pepper mash a different flavor profile, made it a little more complex. There was a little hint of the toast in there from the oak, even though they're old and they don't give off as much oak flavor, like toasted oak, when the barrels are older.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like a really good way to ferment mash to make a hot sauce. So I experimented for years just making hot sauces, growing different peppers on my in my little garden there, and that's when I decided to tweak them into wing sauces to take it a step further.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I actually think the wooden barrel is, it stays true to the just one added layer of flavor an element of flavor that wouldn't normally, be there.
And speaking of barrels, your bottles that you have your 4 sauces in are shaped like barrels. It's very distinctive. That's something you hardly ever see anything like this. Had you, from the start, put your sauces in bottles like this, or at some point did you decide, hey, this looks really unique and original, I think I'll do it this way?
Yeah, you're definitely onto something with that. I didn't start off using those bottles. I mean, I started off probably like just about every hot sauce manufacturer out there, just putting them in ball jars and doing my own canning.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went on and I decided to produce, go into production and sell this stuff legally, an FDA-approved facility, I had to pick a bottle. And I thought, with the whole little, how the company got its start with, using old barrels, I wound up, spending quite some time trying to develop a logo that would appeal to a broad array of people. That would be cool and look a little creepy, but still, not scare away, the little old lady who goes to church every Sunday,
Yeah.
Right. The bottle is like a jug style, flasky, pioneering, and then you add in the old weathered barrels, and so the company has this pioneer Western kind of saloon feel to it, which I think's cool. That's what it all just kind of transpired and developed into. So I'm like, cool, this is all working out. It all just kind of came together in a big epiphany.
Well, definitely. I think it all works very well together. The cattle head skull with the horns and the wings coming out from it, and the whole Western look and feel, and then the distinctive shape of the bottle.
Yeah, it's funny. You just said the cattle head. You know, I kind of thought the same thing at first when I first had I was first designing the labeling on the bottle. But, believe it or not, that is a buffalo skull with wings. Mm-hmm. To me, it looked like a cattle head. And to my graphic artist, I'm like, dude, isn't that a cattle head? And he's like, nah, man, that's a buffalo skull. They're almost identical.
They're very close.
Very close. The only difference between a cattle head and a buffalo, a cattle skull or a buffalo skull is the horns. The horns are slightly more rounded and a little bit thicker and they're stubbier. Mm-hmm. It's almost identical. So it's kind of funny you said that because I was thinking the same thing.
Well, it's a great looking bottle, of course. More importantly, it's a great product. I'm very impressed with what I had. I cooked up a bunch of wings yesterday. I had some of my friends try them. They're all wowed, and they're not chili heads themselves, but I think they were blown away by the flavor, which so many people out there in chili pepper world, they think, it's more about the heat. It's more about catering to those who complain about, this isn't hot enough. Well, it's more importantly, you have to start with the good flavor, and you definitely have it with these.
Yeah, thank you. I really do appreciate that, commenting that how much you like them. Again, I started off using a little bit of unrefined sugar to give them a little bit of sweetness along with the honey in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I wound up putting a chutney in it. Basically, that means for people who don't know what a chutney is, mangoes, raisins, and pineapple, a puree into the sauce to give it a little bit of sweetness. Didn't want to use sugar. So, again, it just adds another layer of flavor along with the vinegars I'm using. Mm-hmm. And there's a little stout beer in there too, it's almost like a tribute to the start of the company when I was making oatmeal cream stouts as a hobby using those old barrels. A lot of famous recipes have a little beer in them. So it actually goes well, the stout beer, I think, in with the recipe. There's not a whole lot in there, but, it's another layer of flavor that I'm trying to cram into the bottle without going too overboard. Mm-hmm. It had other things in it. The recipe used to be like a page long, and I'm just like, you know what, this is a little too much. So I started picking and choosing my battles and seeing what I could taste as I was, tweaking and making it, what stuck out. What flavor profiles I noticed. So I wound up with this. For example, lemon juice was the original recipe. The buffalo style sauces have a little bit of tanginess to them from the vinegar, and mm-hmm. A lot of them do have citric acid in them as a natural preservative. I wound up going with limes. I found that squeezing fresh limes into it to give it a tanginess and a little bit of tartness was better than using the lemons. Yeah. The lemons were a little too bitter. So that just goes to show you how much time and effort I spent in the designing these. These definitely didn't happen overnight. It's been a long, slow progression.
Well, you definitely taste it in there. Now, recently, you were awarded something by Al Buddha Goldenberg of iloveitspicy.com.
Yes, Buddha, my buddy Buddha. Yeah, I met him at Pepper's on the beach. He took home a bottle of garlic parmesan sauce. Again, someone who likes stuff that's, on the hot side. Said he fell in love with it. He says it's one of his favorite go-to wing sauces. We would speak from time to time on the internet and stuff, and he actually called me up one day a few weeks ago and was like, hey, Len, I want to send you out a Christmas card. And I'm thinking, Al, you're Jewish. Why are you sending me a Christmas card? and a couple days before Christmas, I'm at the door and I see a box. I'm like, figuring, I'm thinking someone sent me something from Amazon, like a tie or something. I open up the box. It's this award from iloveitspicy.com for Best of 2012 Garlic Parmesan Wing Sauce, Blackwoods. I'm like, it was very unexpected. And I guess you could say it's the first award Blackwoods has received in the year I've been doing it legally and selling it to stores and not as bathtub hooch.
Well, congratulations on that. Very well deserved. And yeah, to get the accolades of, some of these chili heads and bloggers and people online, it goes to show you that, people who taste hundreds of different products and know their sauces, for them to really find yours and then find it to be one of the best products that really speaks something for the sauces.
Yeah, it makes me proud that all my hard-earned, my labor and blood, sweat, tears over the years of tweaking and playing. I probably made thousands of gallons of this stuff before what you tasted in your bottle, has been refined to that level of perfection that I feel I've created with it. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, do you have anything up your sleeve, anything new for the coming year, or any plans that you have up ahead?
Yeah, I do have some plans up ahead. I'm going to create a new flavor, something probably a little out of the box, not a typical buffalo or barbecue style. I haven't quite decided. I'm messing around with some recipes over the past year. I'm not sure which direction I'm going to go. I'm thinking sesame teriyaki, maybe some type of Caribbean or a Thai type style wing sauce, but just to add to the family here. So I have not several, but a few recipes, and I'm not sure which one Blackwoods is going to come out with next and launch in our product line. But that will be to be announced, and hopefully it gets the accolades and reviews and positive feedback from me trying to create the world's finest brand wing sauce. Hopefully people agree, because again, not everybody is a chili head or likes spicy, or if they do, they like it in a small amount. Just from what I've been noticing. So, but everyone loves sweet. Everyone loves things that are sweet. It'll be sweet. And obviously have a kick to it. And again, of course, have an array of gourmet ingredients in it to put it over the top and make it stand out from the crowd.
Well, very good. Looking forward to trying that. Where could people find your wing sauces at?
Oh, they could always visit me at blackwoodswingsauce.com. And I have a shopping cart there. It's encrypted, secured, and they can place their order, and we'll get them shipped out. Sometimes I run specials. And believe it or not, I actually kick the bottles down. They're about $1 less than they would see in their local hot shop, because I try to ease the pain of the shipping a little bit. So, we all know it costs a good bit to ship, but people that have been ordering, they don't mind spending a few extra dollars on something when they know they're getting something special. That's good.
And I assume that you're on the social networking websites like Facebook?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do from time to time post on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's Blackwoods Wing Sauce. If you punch it in, it automatically should just pop up as you're typing it on. Pretty easy to find me on there. From time to time, I'll put some pictures up of some of the shows I've been doing. And my goal here is to eventually, I'm hoping this year, to make it out to some of the bigger shows and try to get some hopefully national accolades. Try to enter it in some bigger competitions. Try to go for a SCOVY or a Golden Chili. That's my goal.
Well, personally, I think when you get awards like, from Al Buddha Goldenberg or people like that, I mean, that's all the accolades I need. That's all the recommendations I need. Yeah, people who, and I don't want to get into a whole spiel about, making money and all that, but people who don't do it for money, when they taste something and they're wowed by it, it's like, I had to try it myself.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's very comforting, and it really makes me feel like all my hard work is being noticed, even just from some smaller little festivals, and people just come up. I wasn't expecting the overwhelming reaction that I've been getting. People, it's like in the 90 percentile that try it are just like, wow, this is so good. I'm like, yeah, and you're eating it on a plain chip, just sandwich. Now it tastes like when you put it on fried chicken or hot food. The flavor profile comes out even more.
Yeah, well, very good. Any last minute things you want to say before we get off the call here?
No, just I want to wish you a happy 2013. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Well, you as well, Len.
Yeah, thanks. And I hope to see you again in the near future out at one of these, spicy food shows or somewhere along the Happy Trail, and cross paths and have another conversation with you.
Sounds good. Yeah, you never know where I'll end up. Yeah, I'm sure we'll cross paths soon. So, well, anyway, Leonard, thank you very much for talking with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thanks for your time, and thanks for noticing all my hard efforts that I've been putting into these sauces over the years.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Thanks a lot, team. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Very good stuff from Len. And again, thanks for that interview. So for all you Buffalo Wing fanatics out there, this is definitely one I would highly recommend to try. Again, his website is blackwoodswingsauce.com. You can either go there right now or just, or if you're not in front of a computer or an internet-enabled device, you can just go back to the show notes for episode 19 and click on it later. But if you're a big wing fan and, of course, with football season coming to a big climax here in the next month, this is definitely something you'll want to keep in your refrigerator. So, good stuff from Len. Thanks. So anyway, in addition to all the little plugs I gave at the beginning of the podcast, I'd also like to encourage everyone to simply give me feedback. Positive, negative, constructive, whatever it may be, I want to hear from you. There's a handy-dandy little contact form available at the number 2guystalking.com/Firecast. Right now, it's on the left-hand side of the page. Just go there, scroll down a little bit. There's a little web form and the sidebar. Just let me know what you loved about the show, what you didn't like, any suggestions, any recommended topics or guests that you may have. Let me know. I love to hear from everybody. So anyway, thanks to everybody for listening and downloading. And as always, until next time, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.